All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're getting into one of the absolute hottest and most important fields in AI. We're going to peel back the curtain on how these incredible systems make decisions and, maybe more importantly, how you can build a career making sure those decisions are fair, transparent, and, well, make sense to us humans. So, let's get to it.
So, picture this. You've applied for a really important loan, maybe for a house or to start your own business, and you get denied. Bummer. So you ask why. And the answer you get back is basically a shrug. The AI said no, but nobody, not even the people who designed it, can give you a straight answer. You know, this isn't some science fiction plot. It's a very real problem we're dealing with right now.
And that's where this whole idea of black box AI comes from. See, we have these incredibly powerful models, things like deep neural networks that are just amazing at getting the right answer. But their inner workings are so tangled and complex that the logic behind their decisions is totally hidden. The data goes in, an answer comes out, but the why gets lost somewhere inside that box.
And this brings us right to the heart of the matter, AI's black box problem. As we start weaving these AI systems into more and more critical parts of our everyday lives, not being able to understand that why becomes a massive, massive risk.
I mean, think about it. The stakes are unbelievably high. In healthcare, a doctor has to be able to trust and double-check an AI's diagnosis. In finance, you have a fundamental right to know why you were turned down for a loan. And when you're talking about things like self-driving cars or AI being used in courtrooms, well, those decisions can literally be a matter of life or death. So yeah, transparency, it's not a nice to have, it's an absolute must.
So what's the solution? How do we crack open this box and see what's going on inside? Well, the answer is a field called Explainable AI, or XAI for short, and its whole mission is to turn these black boxes into glass boxes.
At its core, XAI is really just a toolkit, a whole collection of methods designed to make AI systems accountable. The goal sounds simple, but it's incredibly important. To build models that we can't just use, but that we can actually trust, debug, and make better, because we finally understand how they think.
Now, there are kind of two main ways to tackle this. On one side, you have what we call interpretable models. These are built to be simple from the get-go, like a basic decision tree where you can literally follow the branches of logic. But on the other side, you have explainable models. This is where you take those super complex black boxes and use clever techniques, you might have heard of things like LIME or SHAP, that act like detectives, probing the model to figure out exactly which pieces of information were the most important for making a particular call.
And this right here, this is the central challenge for just about every AI developer. There's almost always this trade-off. The models that are the most accurate and powerful, the big deep learning ones, also tend to be the hardest to understand. And the ones that are super easy to interpret might not be powerful enough for the job. So a huge part of modern AI is just finding that perfect sweet spot between the two.
And listen, this isn't just some academic debate. It's got real-world teeth. Major regulations, like the GDPR in Europe, now include what's called a right to explanation. That means if a company uses an automated system to make a big decision about you, they are legally required to be able to explain it. And that, right there, is creating a massive demand for people who have these skills.
Okay, so we know what XAI is and why companies are scrambling to implement it. But who are the actual people on the ground building these systems? Let's meet the architects of this new wave of AI.
Two huge roles have really come to define this space: the MLOps engineer and the ML platform engineer. The easiest way to think about it is like this. The MLOps engineer focuses on the lifecycle of one specific model. They're the ones who take a cool model from a data scientist and make sure it actually works reliably in the real world. They automate it, they monitor it, they keep it healthy. The ML platform engineer, on the other hand, thinks bigger. They build the entire factory. They create the underlying infrastructure and tools that everyone else uses to build and deploy all the models. So one builds the car, the other builds the entire assembly line.
All right, so you get what XAI is, and you know who builds it. So how do you actually land one of these amazing jobs? Let's talk strategy for nailing that AI interview.
The first thing you have to realize is that the hiring game has changed. A huge majority of companies, we're talking a massive number, are now using what's called competency-based interviewing. This means they don't just want to hear you talk about theories, they want you to prove what you can actually do by giving them concrete examples from your past.
And honestly, there's a really good reason for this shift. By focusing on evidence and what you've actually done, it strips away a lot of the personal bias and gut feelings that can make old-school interviews pretty unfair.
It really levels the playing field and helps companies find the right person based on their actual proven skills. So, the key to crushing these interviews is a technique called the STAR method. It's so simple, but so powerful. It's how you structure your answers. First, situation, you set the scene. Then, the task, what were you trying to achieve? Next comes the most important part, the action. What specifically did you do? Get detailed here. And finally, the result. What happened? What was the outcome? And if you can put a number on it, even better. This formula turns your experience into a killer story.
And this is exactly where everything we've talked about comes together. An interviewer might ask you something like, tell me about a time you had to explain a complex model's decision to someone who wasn't a technical expert. See? They're not just testing if you know the definition of XAI, they're testing your competency, your real-world skills in problem-solving and communication. And your answer, perfectly structured using the STAR method, is your proof that you can do the job.
So as we wrap this up, just remember this. The entire future of AI really hinges on one word, trust. And you simply cannot have trust without understanding. The great challenge ahead of us isn't just about making AI more powerful, it's about making it transparent. The real question is, are you ready to be one of the people who can explain it?